for the reasons I laid out, a million others, to explicate all that I've learned and continue to learn from having portrayed a hobbit named Sam. I actually think, and I haven't really said this before very much, but I'm starting to think about it, that I was more suited to portray the character before we started filming than I would be now, even after the benefit of learning everything that I've learned. While I had received a formal education and had traveled around the world and was married with a child and had worked professionally for 20 years, before we started that movie, in a very real way, I had a pretty simplistic worldview, perhaps a naive and idealistic worldview, perhaps in some ways an enviable worldview. I knew from reading literature that the best writers and philosophers, one of my favorite books was Candide by Voltaire. Yeah, I always love that. I got a good, at least one Voltaire crowd. Voltaire! Dr. Pangloss! I learned that for those writers and philosophers, they resolve themselves after much anxiety and questing to the basic premise that happiness is synonymous with home, and that cultivating your own garden can be the greatest approach to living a moral life. I knew from the first sentence of Tolkien's book that he was onto something massive. As for Sam, who he is and his importance to the story was simple and honest and beautiful. I understood on a fundamental level what Sam meant to Tolkien. I knew that the gardener, as an idea, sure as a vocation, but the gardener as a mood or a tone, if you can think of it musically, resonated in the most comfortable and confident place in my spirit. Playing that part gave me permission to slow down for a bit the manic way that I was approaching life, and to be the person, or the hobbit, that I knew it was right to be. Then that whole cultural media thing hit, and I could barely track the essence of Sam for a few years. Of course, Sam has Rosie, and I have Christine. Sam likes ale. I like ale. But to the culmination of our analysis, the hobbit named Sam is all about loyalty and bravery and courage and decency and goodness and friendship. These qualities are simultaneously self-explanatory and necessarily examined. And why? What I've said so far should be pleasing and irrefutable in the abstract, but life is complicated, and trying to apply some of these values, or concepts for lack of a better word, is tricky at best, and often very remote. If you're anything like me, then you sense that these aspects of one's character are best revealed through people's actions in life. To hear these lofty values espoused in our philosophy and history and literature and many other classes all goes into the repository of our beliefs, what we hold, the opinions and judgments we make, for better or worse. What I advocate is active consideration of these ideas and their practical application in our lives. It isn't always easy, and it isn't always fun. But what I've learned from Sam is that from an ideal literary character, we can glimpse what might be possible. I've been asked often, in fact, and quite seriously, from powerful people, if I am like Sam. There's almost a hypnotic quality to waiting for that answer. No answer is good enough. If I say yes, as a public figure, I'd be inviting a certain juxtaposition of my life to old Sam, and the hypocrisy would somehow diminish everything. After which the person who asked the question would probably feel some fleeting sense of loss or disappointment, not at me, but as a confirmation of their fears and perhaps cynical suspicions that the ideal of Sam is only fictitious and not likely attainable in this mortal realm. I've always answered, no, I'm not as good or loyal or decent or brave as Sam. Then I see the look in their eyes. Thought so. Such is the power of the medium, and such is the power of people's desires that they can extend their feelings beyond the private, personal, intimate feelings evoked during the experience of a movie into reality. Fiction sometimes overshadows reality. We want our dreams to be true. So what can I do? going forward to reconcile these competing realities. As an actor, I'm duty-bound to evoke these kinds of emotions. I'm an actor. That is my job. That and doing fart jokes and car crashes. Anyhow, as a person living in a modern era, a husband, a father, a citizen, what shall I do with my hopes and dreams and aspirations? Should I keep them limited to the stage and screen? Because in the minds of many, if not most, once you've made money and been famous, been on TV and the silver screen, well, there isn't much else beyond that to want. Well, of course, we know that's not true. It is indeed an incredibly rewarding profession, a lot of the time. The life experiences it affords, the travel, the people, all of that are unbelievably cool. But is it enough? Is there more to do beyond the work of an actor and a filmmaker and the attendant reality of being a celebrity? For some, no. That work will never be complete and requires total devotion. For me, I've had lots of other plans for my life. So what can I do? Well, I can challenge myself to evaluate if I'm being as good or loyal or decent or brave as I should be. I can move forward. I can do what I've always done, which has given me great satisfaction in life. I can be a leader. I can lead. Sounds quite pompous when you put it that way. And self-important. But I assure you that there is nothing quite like leading people, and not just in battle. There's nothing like leading people in some endeavor or other that has merit. Coaching, teaching, parenting, directing. In my life, I've been an outspoken activist, an advocate. I've worked in politics. I've served on boards, and I've done lots of philanthropic and volunteer work. I've spoken out on issues that are important to me. In short, I've tried my best to be a leader. I wanted this conversation to be about leadership and fellowship. Ah, fellowship. This state of being, this experience, it is glorious. It certainly was glorious with the other hobbits and the cast at large and the crew on the trilogy. I have enjoyed fellowship in many ways throughout my life, in college, in sports, making movies, with travel companions, even with and especially with family. What I've learned about fellowship is that it can be fleeting. It is a sacred thing to wrap yourself in the embrace of your friends, people who have come through some stage or stages of your life with you. It is so important to relish every second of it, because most bonds of fellowship have a narrative with a beginning and a middle and hopefully a to be continued. So soak it up and give much of yourself to it. That's what I learned about fellowship from the Lord of the Rings. Also, that there is awesome power in unity, and tattoos on the outside of your ankle really hurt. Now, I've talked about the boundaries between fact and fiction and how it relates to the audiences and their blurring perceptions with the performers they come into contact with. So in a broader sense, in any given forum, I'm never completely sure where people stand at the moment on the idea of celebrity and stardom and fame as it relates to individuals taking on a broader leadership role in our society. By and large, when folks speak to issues that are directly related to their own experience, their efforts are met warmly. I have in mind those who have been touched by AIDS and cancer and heart disease, or people who are obsessed with curing homelessness or fixated on protecting animal rights and those kind of things. Unless, like Michael J. Fox, for example, your advocacy and leadership on an issue intersects with people who have deeply held opposing viewpoints about what you are doing, stem cell research, etc. But I've observed that when people are together or appearing on radio or cable shows and the like, it seems easy and safe to pick apart the ridiculous accoutrements of celebrity culture and to skew the outrageous sums of money and overblown lifestyles led by members of the media elite. But no matter how critical we are, if we're being honest, we must concede that in private, at home or on the internet, at movies or concerts or scintillating talks given at local universities. Yeah, you're all guilty. Even if you have a solid grasp of the demarcation line between fiction and nonfiction, it is inescapable that we were all curious and moved at certain points, in some ways, by the quirky, bizarre, often talented, sometimes